Hi, and welcome to episode 98 of the Noble Character Crafts podcast. My name is Amy, and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. This is a podcast all about my crafty life, and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. You can find me on Instagram at Noble Character Crafts, and you can also get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, and I will also have all of the show notes for you in the description box below as well. I am currently hosting a make-along over on Instagram called the Make 9 2020 MAL. And that is for you to join in the Make 9 Challenge, where you choose 9 projects that you would like to make within the year of 2020 and post a grid for those 9 projects on Instagram. Include the hashtag Make92020MAL to be included in this make-along. And then anytime that you post anything with that hashtag showing progress on any of the projects that you would like to make this year or any of the finished objects that you complete, then you would be entered to win a prize, which I am drawing periodically throughout the year. If anybody needs assistance making one of those grids, I know sometimes it can be a little tricky to figure out how to make one of those grids. I'm more than happy to help you. Just contact me through my email and let me know which 9 patterns you would like to make this year, and I'll be glad to help you make a grid so that you can post on Instagram as well. I really appreciate everybody that has already joined in, and even though we're already into July, it's not too late. WIPs are included in this make-along, and any craft is also included and encouraged. So even if you have 9 projects that are just languishing in your WIPs, you can certainly include those if you're hoping to finish those off this year. That is perfectly fine. You do not have to finish anything at all, honestly. It's just a participatory make-along. So, even if you don't complete anything, it's perfectly okay. It's just a fun make-along so that we can encourage one another to try to stay focused on the projects that we'd like to make this year, but there's no pressure. It's just, of course we want to make what we want to make. So there's no pressure. It's just a fun challenge and certainly nothing to stress about. So I'd love it if you would like to join in if you haven't yet. And again, thank you so much to everybody who has joined in along the year. It's been so much fun to see all of the projects that you're making, and so many of you have completed so many of your projects already, so that's awesome. I have a few finished objects that I would like to share with you all today. I was able to finish another one of the objects from my personal Make 9 list, so that's exciting. I haven't been doing super well with my personal Make 9 list, it doesn't seem. I actually made 2 Make 9 lists this year, one for gift knits and then one for my personal projects. And anyway, this is the 4th project from my personal Make 9 list. These are the beautiful Tubular Socks, which is a pattern by Tabitha Gandee, and I absolutely love this pattern. I think it's so much fun, and these were super fun to work up. Last time I recorded, I was almost done with the first sock. There's a little stitch marker right here showing where I was last time I recorded, and unbeknownst to me, I was already ready to start the toe, but I didn't think that I was. I ended up knitting an extra 10 rows, and then I was knitting these on 9-inch circulars, which one of the problems with knitting with 9-inch circulars is that you cannot try the sock on so easily. You have to transfer it onto DPNs or longer circular needles, and so that's what I had to do to try it on, and when I did that, it was already way too long. So I had to go back and rip out a good inch. 10 rows is what I had to rip out before, being able, so I could go back and start the toe right away. So these are knit top down. I used US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. I joined in on the Summer Sock Camp 2020 that Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady is hosting to use the 9-inch circulars, because I don't normally use 9-inch circulars. In fact, I haven't tried them since 2017, when that was the first time that I ever tried them, and I was very unsuccessful in using them. But this pattern specifically recommends, or Tabitha Gandee, the designer, says in the pattern that she used 9-inch circulars, so I thought I would give them another try. Anyway, I used US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. I cast on the 3rd size, which is 64 stitches, The cuff is a 1x1 rib. I did that for 20 rows. And then just after a few more rows, then you start this beautiful and super fun and easy color work pattern, which I loved. And the 9-inch circulars really did prove to be super fast for me. I found they were really easy it seemed really fast to go through this, leg of stockinette and then the foot. I mean, everything just seemed to go pretty quickly, I felt. They're still not my favorite way to knit socks, I don't think. My favorite way to knit socks is knitting 2 at a time, magic loop. But I thought it was really a good choice just for this pattern specifically. I was worried about the color work because I usually go up 2 needle sizes for my color work because I knit color work so tightly usually that I thought it would be, I was afraid it was going to be a problem. But I remembered that when I did try 9-inch circulars in the past, I was pretty loose in my gauge. So anyway, I'm happy with how it turned out. I think my stitches are pretty even. I think maybe they're a little bit tighter on the color work, but it's okay. I think they turned out, I'm really happy with how they turned out. I love the pattern so much, but the thing that really drew me to this pattern is the heel. It is using a herringbone stitch, which I just thought was so unique. I'd never seen that before, and I'd always wanted to try the herringbone stitch, which I haven't done yet until now, and I really loved it. Now, I did mention on my last episode that heel flap was pretty fiddly, and it was, but the second sock went so much more smoothly. I ended up switching to DPNs right away on the second heel, and it went so much better. However, my heel is a little bit looser on this second sock, the one that's in front here, than it is on the first sock. You can see that my stitches are quite a bit tighter on that first sock because I was using the 9-inch circulars for the majority. In fact, I think you can almost see, I think I switched to DPNs about right here on the heel flap of the second one, which made it so much easier to knit, but obviously I'm a bit looser on the DPNs. I thought I was looser on 9-inch circulars. Who knows? Anyway, I really think that this looks nicer though with it being a little bit looser. So, but it's okay. My first time trying the herringbone stitch, they're not perfectly matched, but that's okay. The yarn that I used is Knit Picks Stroll Tweed, and the colors I used are Oyster Heather for the main color. Then this deep green is called Sequoia Heather, Lavender Fields Heather, Down Heather, and North Sea Heather. So I really love how those colors look together. I think it's so pretty. I really am happy with how these worked up. The Knit Picks Stroll Tweed is 65% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon, and 10% Donegal tweed, and it's fingering weight. I added a bit of a slip stitch pattern to the sole of the foot. This is the second time I'm trying that. However, I haven't been wearing socks this summer. I don't wear socks in the summer very often. So this is only the second time that I've added this to a sock, but I really don't know if it's going to help me much, although I have heard that it can help. The reason why I did that is because I typically wear a hole in the sole of the ball of my foot quickly. That's usually where I first get a hole in my socks, is on the ball of my foot. And so I'm hoping that a bit of a slip stitch pattern will help that. Now, on my first pair of socks that I added that to, I made it a little bit longer, and I wish I would have done that for this too, but again, not being able to try these on using the 9-inch circulars, I was just counting the rows from my other socks that I did and trying to match them, but my row gauge must be different with this yarn and the needles that I used. Anyway, so I wish I would have just started the slip stitch pattern a little bit further back, but it's okay. I think it'll be okay still. Otherwise, I think I followed the pattern completely. I know. In the original pattern, there is just 1 or 2 rows of this first contrast color that are supposed to be worked right before the toe, and I did not do that. I just didn't want to weave in more yarn, and I didn't think it was necessary. I don't know. I just decided not to do that. So otherwise, I followed the pattern, and I'm so happy with how they turned out. I think they're so fun and beautiful. I really love this tweed yarn. It was so fun to work with. I have used it before, but I really enjoyed it. So that's my first finished object. Super happy with that, and so happy that I've got another item off of my Make 9 list checked off. The next finished object that I made was kind of a random, well, completely a random project that I wasn't planning on making. I was just looking through YouTube one day and I saw a crochet tutorial using this yarn. This exact yarn, the same color and everything. So that's why it caught my eye, because I've had this yarn in my stash for several years and I haven't used it for anything. It is Woolly's Thick and Quick Lion brand, and it's in the color Barley. It's 82% acrylic and 10% wool and 8% rayon. So the pattern that I saw on this YouTube tutorial is called the Bulky Crochet Basket with handles, and the designer is CJ Design. And it was a super easy project to whip up. It was super quick, and I'm so pleased with how it turned out. Here it is. So you actually hold that bulky weight yarn double. So it's super thick, and you use a large hook, of course. I used a P 15mm hook, which I should grab because the one I used is super special. Here is the hook I used, which is an antique. I got it from my husband's grandmother, which she doesn't crochet, so I'm not sure why she had it, but she does garage sales all the time, and she had this at one of her garage sales, and I just got it because, of course, I was drawn to a crochet hook. Anyway, it says Boy 15 USA, and then it has a patent number on it. And there's also in pencil written 20 cents. Somebody wrote 20 cents on it. So super cool. It's all dented up, and it's really quite an old hook. I wasn't sure if I was going to like how this looked a little rough, or just kind of sharp and pointy. I wasn't sure how I was going to like using this hook, but it went well. I mean, it's not soft in your hand because it's wood, so it's pretty hard. I'm kind of gotten used to using those clover hooks that I've been using lately. So it was a little hard in my hand. And then when you use such thick yarn using bulky weight doubled, it was, a little bit hard on the hands, but it also is a pretty small project really, and it went super quickly. I did modify the pattern a little bit. So this is a YouTube tutorial, as I mentioned, so I will link to that in the description box below. And let's see, I added an extra 2 rounds to the base of this. So I had a total of 7 rounds on the base, so I wanted mine just a little bit bigger. And then I believe I followed her instructions for the height of the basket. Making the handles was so much fun. It just works up so quickly, and I think it's so gratifying. I loved how it worked up. It used almost all of 2 skeins of that yarn. And yeah, it was just so simple and wonderful. I really loved making it, and I decided to make 2. So I have 2 of these. And oh, there's the back side. Well, that's kind of neat to see, actually. That's the back side. So you can kind of see that this is the joining round, and it kind of goes at a diagonal. It's a little bit noticeable, but it's not too terrible. But this would be more of the front side. And I had 2 more skeins of this yarn in my stash, and I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and use this up. I am thinking that these would make great baskets as gifts. I could fill them up with a lot of goodies. So, maybe a candle, some lotion. I want to make a pair of mittens for my mother-in-law for Christmas, so maybe I could give her a basket and have them in here with some other goodies, maybe, some treats and stuff. So anyway, I think that would be a super fun gift basket. I might even make more. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, it was really a fun project to make, and if I can think of who else I would like to give a gift basket to for Christmas, I might end up making more in some other colors. They would be really cute, and I mean, of course, you can come up with so many uses for them, but it would be a cute pot. You could put it around a potted plant. It'd make a cute little waste paper basket even, by a desk or something like that. Or, of course, for yarn or a yarn project, that would be perfect as well. So anyway, I really enjoyed making this, and I highly recommend you checking out the pattern. Oh, I know, I did make another modification to the handles. In the original pattern, the handle is only supposed to skip over 5 stitches, and I made mine just 2 stitches larger, so I skipped over 7 stitches. And then on the next row, then you're supposed to work 2 extra single crochets into the handle space. And so instead of doing 7 stitches into that handle space, I did 9 stitches into that handle space. So it's all done using single crochet in US terms. So that's the only stitch that you use besides the chaining, of course. So super fun. I love it so much. I really think that this yarn is good for the basket look too, because it, you know, with the flecks in there, it looks kind of, you know, baskety, I think. Anyway, I'm so happy with those. All right. The last finished objects I have to share are some more dishcloths, and these I think are going to be the last dishcloths that I make for quite some time, because I've used up as much of my cotton yarn stash as I can for making dishcloths. I have 2 little balls left over that are it's too small to make a dishcloth. So anyway, I'm super excited about that. So if you haven't watched before, I made quite a few dishcloths earlier in the year, and then I had a bunch of scraps left over, and I ended up making a scrappy granny square blanket using up quite a few of my worsted weight cotton scraps, which I love that Afghan so much. And then the remainder of the cotton yarn that I had left over after that blanket was completed, I have been making into scrappy dishcloths. I use a free pattern online called Grandmother's Favorite Dishcloth. I will link to that pattern in the description box below. But here are 4 more dishcloths that I was able to complete, and I really, really love the scrappy nature of these. They're so much fun. I love putting different colors together and seeing how they look striped up. It's really fun. So first one here. Oh, I do make a modification to the pattern. The original pattern calls for you to make, I think, go up to 44 stitches before you start decreasing, and I go up to 52 stitches before I decrease. And I also use a smaller needle, I believe. I use a US 6 4mm needle. One. And then, so these are, I'm not going to go through all the yarns because it's just tons of different scraps. I like the striped ones so much. And the last one. So I really love how these turned out. I think they're super fun, and they make great gifts as well. So I'm so happy to have used up all of my cotton yarn pretty much. Like I said, I just have 2 little nuggets left, and you know, they might come in handy for something down the road. Even for like using a piece of cotton yarn to tie up a gift or something like that comes in handy once in a while. So those are all of my finished objects. So I'm going to go on to works in progress, which I think I have 6 works in progress to share with you all, so bear with me. My first one is huge. It is a huge granny square blanket. I'm just making one large granny square, and it's gotten so big. This is a gift for my brother-in-law and his family. He is married and has 4 little girls, and my youngest son wanted me to make, well, he says he wanted to make a blanket for his cousins, these girls, in their family, and that meant that I'm making the blanket. But he helped me pick out all of the yarns, and he has been helping me choose what color comes next along the way, so that's been super fun. So I'll have to stand up to show you this because it's just enormous. It's already so heavy, but I'm not quite done with it yet. Oh my goodness, I can't even fit it in the frame when I stand up, can I? See if I go back further. There we go. Can you see it? It's so huge, but I'm loving it. You can't see it very well, can you? Well, it's okay. I can't see it very well because I'm hidden behind it. Anyway, there you get an idea of how big it is. Whew, that's heavy. That's a workout just to hold that thing up. Whew, okay. Anyway, let's see. Here is a progress keeper marking where I was last time I recorded. So I think I counted this morning, and I've added 15 rows, I think, since I recorded last, which of course now that it's so big, it takes quite a while to go around a row or, you know, all the way around the square. I am using up tons and tons of really deep stash, 100% acrylic yarn from various different makers or brands. And I will list everything that I'm making in the description box below if you're curious, but just tons and tons of worsted weight yarn. Oh, except for one. This row right here is made using a bulky weight, but I really don't see that, I mean, you can kind of tell that it's a little bit thicker, but it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. So anyway, I am now down to a pretty limited number of colors to choose from because I have used up the majority, quite a few of the different color options that I had. There were a few colors that I only had one skein of, and I've used some of those up already. So the color choices are going to get limited as I go out, but that's okay. I still have a ton of yarn. As I mentioned before, I have a ton of this deep charcoal. Here it is in the skein. It's a Vanna's Choice. I think it's called Dark Heather Gray or something like that. And I have a ton of that. So I may end up, well, I measured it this morning and I'm at, I think 5'2", and I want to make it to 6 feet. So I don't have too much further to go, really. I mean, just 10 more inches. So we'll see how it goes. I'm sure I'll be fine with yarn. But anyway, my color choices are going to be a little bit more limited as I go out, as I'm running out of yarn. But that's okay. So yeah, I'm super excited about this. The reason why I want to make it 6 feet long is because my brother-in-law is a super tall guy. He's 6'6", and so I thought it would be fun to have a big, huge blanket for them. I don't know, just in our family, our big blankets are our most popular ones because the kids just love cuddling up on the couch with us, and you know, it's fun if everybody can kind of fit under the same blanket together. They just think that's more fun, I think. So anyway, that's my thoughts for making it such a large blanket. But like I said, it's really heavy, so hopefully it will be usable for them. I think it will go with their home decor, which I mentioned last time, so that's so exciting. I've just seen pictures of their house because they live out in North Carolina. We haven't been out there to see them or to see their home, but anyway, yeah, this is coming along well. It's such an easy project. You would think that I would not be able to work on this in the summer heat, but we have air conditioning in our home, and I tend to run cold, and my husband tends to run warm, and so when the air is on, and then usually we have our ceiling fan on, I tend to work on this when we're watching a movie together as a family or something like that. And yeah, I usually am cuddled up on the couch working on this, and it's so cozy. Even last night I was working on it as my kids were watching some YouTube videos of demolition derbies with my husband. And anyway, so I was working on this and cuddled under it with a couple of my boys as I worked on it. So anyway, hopefully it will be fun for this family as they receive it. I hope they'll enjoy having it in their home as well. I'm using an H hook, 5mm, and this is a clover hook. As I mentioned, I'm enjoying using those a lot. My next work in progress is in this bag by Allison Barnes collection. And in here is a shawl that I'm knitting. It is called Das Macabre, I think. I looked up the pronunciation and that's what I found out, so hopefully it's correct. This is a beautiful pattern by Boo Knits. And it is, I feel that it is quite a big project to take on because it's made using lace weight yarn and it is beaded. I've never made anything with lace weight yarn before, and I've only done one other project using beading. So the reason why I started this was not only because it's beautiful, but also because I wanted to kind of remind myself how to use beads for another one of the projects on my Make 9 list that I wanted to add beading to. So anyway, I am using, again, Knit Picks yarn, and this is called Knit Picks Curio. And it's in the Tea Rose colorway. It is 100% cotton, and again, lace weight. I'm using the recommended needle sizes, which It is kind of funny that it switches from a US 5 3.75 millimeter for sections 1 through 5 of this shawl, and then it switches to a US 6 4 millimeter for the remainder of the shawl. I'm already on to section 6, which is super exciting. It's going a lot quicker than I thought it would, and it still may not be done soon. I thought when I started this was going to be a pretty long-term project, but I have really enjoyed working on it, so I feel like I've made some significant progress since I recorded last. There you can see a progress keeper marking where I was last time I recorded. So I had just finished the easy garter stitch section of the shawl and was just starting into the lace work. And it's going so well. I love it. I haven't made any mistakes yet that I know of, so that's awesome. And it's going really well. You can see that I have just inserted a lifeline into this last row that I knitted. And I have continued to, I started that when I finished the garter section. I put in a lifeline, and I have continued to move that down every ½ inch or so. I'm not trying to take any risks with that since it's, you know, a full-on lace piece right now. I don't want to take any chances with making a mistake and having to figure it out without a lifeline in there. So if you're not familiar with a lifeline, that's just when you thread, see on these Chow-Goo needles, which by the way, I use Chow-Goo needles for everything. These have a tiny little pinhole in the connecting piece there. These are my interchangeable set. So anyway, I can just thread, I don't know if you can see that hole very well. I can just thread a thin piece of yarn into that hole, and then as I'm knitting, it just threads itself. The problem is though that I am using stitch markers to mark the lace repeat for this, and when you put in the lifeline, you have to take out the stitch markers because otherwise the stitch markers will just get caught on the lifeline. So I usually put the lifeline on a wrong side row where I don't really have to pay attention to the stitch markers, and then when I start the next right side row, then I add the stitch markers back in, and that seems to be working pretty well. The beads that I am using, I mentioned last time that when I started this, I was using a different colored bead. So the first 2 rows have a bead that's different, but it's there's one at the end of my fingertip, but you can barely see it because it just blends in with the yarn too much. So I switched over to this bronze colored bead instead, which I'm much happier with. They are just a bead that I picked up from Walmart, and they're a DIY cousin brand. So Cousin DIY size 6, and it doesn't have a color name on the box, but it's a bronzy colored bead. So yeah, this is going well. I'm shocked that it's going well. I thought it was going to be kind of a slog, but I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I do really have to concentrate on the right side rows especially. Oh, I should mention that I think it was section 3, maybe like the first, I can't quite remember now, but maybe like the first section of the lace, you really had to pay attention on both the right and wrong side rows, which was, you know, that was a lot to concentrate on. And I thought that the whole shawl was going to be like that, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to take forever. But actually, I think maybe in section 4 or 5, it switches to where every wrong side row is just purling, and you know, it's just mindless. So that's awesome to have a bit of a break in between each right side row where you have to be counting your stitches and paying attention to the lace pattern. So anyway, that was a relief. And I think from now on, the wrong side row is, well, I shouldn't say that, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of the wrong side rows from now on are like that, with it just being a purl across. There might be a few that I have to count, but the majority of it isn't. You don't have to count on the wrong side row, so that's great. Anyway, I'm really loving this. I love the color. I love how it's working up. I love the feel of it too. I wasn't sure how this yarn, being 100% cotton, would work in a shawl, but oh my goodness, it's so nice. It's going to be so great for a summer shawl. You know, it'll be cooler and it's lace weight also, so I think it'll be perfect. I love it so much. So pretty. So I'm super happy with that progress. There's no rush on this, but I'm enjoying it, so we'll see. Of course, the rows are getting longer and longer, so I'm sure I'll slow down from now on. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode, I said that this episode I had knitting and crocheting to share with y'all, but I also have embroidery. I forgot to include that, but anyway, I have this embroidery project that I started in this bag from my Creative Frenzy. And I showed this off as a new purchase that I made last episode. And I've made a bit of, quite a bit of progress on this project as well. This is a kit that I got from Walmart. It is from Leisure Arts. And here is the embroidery kit. It's called Blush Roses. Although I went to Hobby Lobby a few days ago and I saw the same kit and it had a different name. No, I can't remember what it was. Something else roses. I don't know, like antique roses or something like that. But it was the exact same kit, so I thought that was funny because I knew mine was named Blush Roses. Anyway, I have switched out the color of these purplish roses because in the kit, the yarn that actually comes does not match that. It's more of this bright cranberry red color, which I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, it's okay, but I wanted something softer. So I also showed you last time that I got a second kit, an embroidery kit from Leisure Arts, and in there was this peachy colored thread that I love so much. And I noticed when I was making this kit that they include a ton of extra thread. So I'm done with all of course I didn't use the red at all, but I'm done with all of these colors here in the middle, and I have all this extra. So they include quite a bit of extra thread, at least they did for this kit. So I'm hoping that they included extra thread for that other kit because I borrowed some of it. I use that peachy color for those roses. Now let's see, how is this supposed to go? Not that it really matters, but I kind of want to show it how it's supposed to be. Okay, so it goes this way. I'm loving it. Oh my goodness, it's coming along so well. Last time I showed this to you, I had just started the dark green leaves and I wasn't even finished with those, I don't think. So those were done with satin stitch as well as the light green leaves. And then there's a bit of straight stitch, is it called, for the stems and the little detail in the leaf. Let's see, I'm new to embroidery. This is my first embroidery project, so I'm learning. Yes, it's called a straight stitch. And I did that with some dark brown thread. And then these roses, aren't they great? I think they're so beautiful. I'm so impressed with how they came out. They were super easy. I couldn't believe how easy they were. It's called a woven wheel stitch. And I hope it's okay to show this. I would think it would be. It's probably easy to find these stitches online. Anyway, so here's a diagram of the different stitches that you need to do. And here's how you do the woven wheel. So you just make these spokes and then you thread your yarn in and out underneath the spokes. And it's super easy. They work up so quickly and they're so effective, I think. I love it. So the original fabric was printed with the sketch of what the design looks like. So it looked kind of like this it's printed on the material. Here, you can see on the back side still a little bit. So there's these dark lines. Now I did have a bit of a problem. If you can see, like around this peach one here, I can still kind of see the circle and I want that to get covered up. But the part that I'm working on now, it's not quite finished because I am working on the French knots using this light cream colored thread. And it's working out pretty well there. You can see that I've been able to cover up all of the little in-between parts that maybe show that drawing from underneath. Now I mentioned last time that I was a little bit concerned about doing the French knots because I remembered that I had tried making French knots in the past and it didn't go well. I looked up a YouTube tutorial that helped me. They're probably not very perfect yet, but they're coming along. I think they'll be good. They're not perfect by any means, but again, it's my first time trying embroidery and I'm really happy with how this is turning out. Now I am a little bit concerned about, I'm not using a hoop. I just found it easier not to use the hoop. And it's going really well, but I am a little bit concerned about it kind of puckering. I don't know. And also the material is really wrinkly, so I'll have to look up how to iron. I mean, is it okay to iron it out with all that thread on there? I'm not sure how that will go. Maybe if I just like steam it. If you have any tips, I would be happy to hear them from you. But anyway, I'm super excited about how this is coming along. I did mention last time that I was having a bit of problems with the needle and pulling the needle through. I did find in my stash, luckily, I had some embroidery needles, so that was handy to come across. It has a much bigger eye for me to thread the thread through, and that's going a lot better. It is still difficult to pull the needle through the fabric, but I guess I'm just getting more used to it as I continue to work on it. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. It came with its own little hoop, which I don't think is a very high quality. I'm not really sure. I might try to find a better hoop. I mean, even the connecting part is just like cattywampus there on the top. So I might try to find a different hoop to put it in that's a little bit higher quality, but yeah, I'm just planning on finishing it off in the hoop and hanging it on my wall. I might even hang it back there with that piece. Especially if I make that second one too, it might make a cute little trio over there on the wall. So yeah, I love it. I love the colors. I'm so glad that I switched out that red for the peach. I think it's so much softer and elegant looking. So yeah, I'm really happy for my first embroidery project. It's super fun. My next work in progress is being held in this antique, probably, I'm not really sure. I picked it up at a thrift store, which I typically pick up my baskets that I have several of at thrift stores. This one's really cool, isn't it? And it also has a lid, but I'm using it to store some of the scraps of yarn that I'm using for this project. This is my long-term whip of my Hexy Scrappy Blanket. And this is my own pattern. I will link in the description box below. I will write out the details of how I am making this in case you're interested in the pattern that I'm using. I am using a clover hook again. It is a C 2.75 millimeter clover hook. And I show this off whenever I make another complete round around the hexagon. So I have a complete hexagon of hexagons. It's just my thing. I like to make a complete huge hexagon and then I like to show it off. So I just finished another round a couple days ago and it's getting really big. So I'm super happy with it. I now have 12 hexagons along each side and here's kind of a close-up of it. This is all fingering weight yarn. It uses the tiniest little scrap of yarn. For each of the rounds, it's a 4-round hexagon. I use one color for the first 2 rounds, a second color for the 3rd round, and a 3rd color for the 4th round. I join all of my hexagons as I go, and I crochet over all the ends, so even the back side is all neat and tidy. No little pieces hanging out. There's usually a tiny little piece that's left after I've crocheted over the ends, and I just snip that off when I'm done attaching another hexagon, so the back looks neat too. And I love working on this. So my habit has been that I add at least 1 hexagon a day to hopefully make some significant progress, but this is just going to be a super long-term project. I know even working on it every day, it's still a slow project because it is pretty tiny. You know, each hexagon is pretty small. So I'll stand up so you can see it better. Here it is. I love this one so much. It's my favorite. It's my favorite scrappy blanket, which I have several of. I have 5. I mean, besides the one I'm making for my brother-in-law's family, I have 5 of my own scrappy blankets, which one of them is a new project that I will show in a second. But anyway, this is my favorite of all of them. It's just a work of art, I feel like. I'm so happy with it. It is, you know, a lot of hours have gone into this, but it's just so much fun. I love it with so much. I just love it so much. Oh my goodness. Isn't it? I think it's just mesmerizing to look at it. I think it's so fun. I am not picky with the colors that go into this. I just put any color into it. As you can probably plainly see, it's very colorful, but I love the effect of it so much. So anyway, I'm super happy with this. I mean, this is going to be, whenever it is done, I want to make it probably pretty big, and anyway, whenever this is done, it's going to be kind of hard to use it, I'm afraid, because it's just so special to me. I won't want it to get ruined, and I'll have to hand wash it, I think, because of all the different colors that are in it. There's a lot of different hand-dyed yarns in here, so I'll have to even like spot clean it, I think, because I'm just worried that the colors will run into each other if it's washed any other way. But oh my goodness, it's so, I just love it. If you can't tell, it's my favorite so much. I love it. Okay, enough gushing about that. So I still am going to continue to work around the outside until I make it, until it's wide enough where I think, you know, I want to start making it more of a rectangular shape. But for now, I'm still just continuing to work around the outside of the hexagon. I love just putting the different yarn colors together. They're so much fun. I just love each little hexie is its own little work of art, I think. You know, it's just fun to do some different color combinations, and anyway, I love it. Okay. I have 2 new works in progress that I've started since I recorded last. And since I mentioned my other scrappy blanket, I'll go ahead and mention this one next. I just started this a few days ago, but it's so addictive. Whenever I finish a hexie from that blanket that I just showed you, if I have any yarn left over that's too small to go into that blanket, I will save it. So anything that's at least this long, so I'd say maybe 18 inches or more. If it's, you know, if it's smaller than this, I won't save it. But if it's at least 18 inches, then I'll save it. And I've been making I've been using the Russian join method to wind yarn into a ball, joining the colors as I go. And I had a ball wound up that weighed 125 grams just from those tiny little scraps. And I was so excited to start my first granny stripe blanket. And I was inspired by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. She has a couple of these going right now, and I just love how they look. I have seen them on other people's podcasts as well, but Kay is kind of the head of the Scrappy Sunday hashtag, and she always posts a Scrappy Sunday chat once a month. And anyway, she was just showing off her granny stripe blankets that she's working on her last Scrappy Sunday chat that she posted last Sunday. And so I was just motivated. I really, really wanted to start one too, using up that 125 ball of totally scrappy pieces. So I did the same thing as Kay in that I chained 300 chains before to start my blanket. I chained 300, and I did exactly what Kay did. So I'm totally copying you, Kay. Anyway, I also followed the tutorial that she links to in her project, which is a Bella Coco tutorial on YouTube, but I will link that in my description box as well. I am using that same hook that I used for my hexie blanket, so it's the 2.75 millimeter hook. And oh my goodness, this project is so addictive. I want to work on it so much. I have to pull myself away from it to work on some other projects. It's so much fun. I love it. Isn't it great? I mean, it's crazy, right? But it's so fun. I was worried I was gonna hate it because it was too wild, you know, too many colors. Anything's going into this, and there's so many little tiny pieces. I mean, look here. You can see that this little scrap of this light turquoise color only made enough to make 2 little clusters of granny square stitches. So anyway, but I love it. Now, there is a bit of a bumpy, you know, like you can kind of see that the line at the top here is a bit bumpy where you have a color change. And that's because of the Russian join method. When you do a Russian join method, basically you're having a little section of your yarn that's held double. So it's probably more of a DK weight there for just a little bit. And so it makes more of a ripply look. But in the, you know, when the blanket's completely done, I don't think it will be very noticeable. And I just love it. I love it that this yarn would have ended up in the trash if I hadn't saved it. You know, normally I think most people would not save tiny little nuggets of yarn. I mean, honestly, super less than 1 gram. All of them are less than 1 gram. Anyway, so this would have, you know, just been yarn that got thrown in the trash, and it's being made into this beautiful blanket. Now, it's also going to be a super long-term project because, I mean, basically, I'm not going to be able to finish this until I finish my hexi blanket because I'm using up the leftovers from that blanket to make this blanket. And as fast as I'm working through this ball, it's going to go pretty quickly, and then I'll just have to wait until I gather up some more scraps from my hexi blanket. But I'm happy that I started it because it's so much fun. I'm just holding this ball in a yarn bowl that I got from my friend Tina. It's called Yarn Ballet. So yeah, it's working out really well just to have it in there, and it's small enough that even the blanket can fit in there for now. Not forever, but for now. So that's a super fun new project that I'm super excited about. My last work in progress is a new cast on in this beautiful bag from Trisha of Joy in the Stitches. And this is my 5th project from my personal Make 9 list. This is a sweater by Natalie Pellick. I believe I've made a hat by her as well. And this sweater is called Autumn Whirlpool. And this is the sweater that I mentioned that I wanted to add beads to. So I have this tiny little Notions pouch from Trisha as well of Joy in the Stitches. And that is holding my beads and my little tiny crochet hook. That's what I was using for the shawl as well. It's a small crochet hook. This is another antique crochet hook. It says it's number 12, made in England, Millward, M-I-L-W-A-R-D, and even so tiny it has its own little lid, but that works so well just to grab a bead and thread it onto the yarn. The beads that I'm using are gorgeous. I love them so much. I got these from Seed Bead Paradise, and these are a Toho bead, size 6, and they're called Gold Lustered Raspberry, the color. I love them, and they're working really well. Now these aren't as much of a contrast as the bronze on the tea rose colored yarn, but I'm really happy with how this is looking. The yarn I'm using is my own hand-dyed yarn. I used to sell hand-dyed yarn. I don't anymore, but I do, you know, dye my own yarn for my own projects sometimes. This color is not coming across correctly on the screen. It's more of a purple tone. I mean, I called it Vineyard when I sold it, so it is a very wine color, but it's coming across on the screen more red than it is in real life. It's kind of a hard color to capture on screen. Anyway, I just started this. I haven't gotten very far. It calls for a really tight gauge. It calls for 30 stitches to 4 inches. It is fingering weight yarn, but I did my gauge swatch using US 1 2.25 millimeter needles, and I still had too loose of a gauge. The original pattern calls for you to use, I think, US 3 needles. But anyway, my gauge on US 1s is between 27 to 28 inches, or stitches per 4 inches. 27 to 28 stitches for 4 inches. So still I'm too loose. So I have gone down a size from what I would normally knit for myself since my gauge is looser. I'm hoping it'll be fine. So it's top down, and so this is the neckband, and I have added some beading. Now it's a lot. I mean, I added a lot of beads just around that top one. After, you know, I'm just doing this kind of like trial and error because I'm just adding beads to the pattern. It doesn't call for them. And so anyway, it's kind of a lot there around the neckline. They're pretty close together. But I think, you know, I'm thinking it's kind of acting as a necklace, you know, as a bit around the neck. It's a little bit more beaded up there around the neckline. And I probably won't put beads that close together as I work my way down. Now the yoke of this sweater, it's a yoked sweater, and it has a lot of cabling in it as well. I'll try to post a picture here so you can see what the actual sweater looks like. And I have started the cabling a little bit here. It's nice that I can work this up on a, you know, a circular needle, so it's easy just to go around and around. That's going really well. Oh, but for the main body, I'm using the US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. But for the ribbing, the pattern calls for you to go down. Now, again, the original had larger needles, but it calls for you to go down a whole millimeter size for the ribbing. Well, for my needles, the smallest needle I had was a 000, which is a 1.5 millimeter. And that's not quite a whole millimeter step down from the US 1. So anyway, I used 000s for the first time. I've never used them before, but that's what I used for the ribbing. So anyway, that went well though. I mean, everything seems to be going well. When I was working the ribbing, it wasn't, oh, I know, I didn't have, what was my issue? Oh, I know. The 000s were 4 inches or 5 inches instead of only 4 inches for the actual needle size. And so I couldn't put them on a short circular cable to work in the round. I had to do magic loop on a longer cable because the needles were longer. So where was I going with that? Oh, before I switched to this shorter circular needle, I was able to try on the ribbing, the neckline, and it does fit me well. It's a close fitting neckline, as you can probably tell, but it seems to be fitting so far. So, you know, it's a baby project, but it seems to be going well. I'm thinking it'll probably take me a long time to do this though, since the gauge is pretty tight. And the beading will kind of slow me down, and the cabling will probably slow me down too, but I'm excited about it. I am gonna, per usual, I'm going to end up cropping it a bit. I typically crop the sweaters that I make, and I will crop this one a bit too, just because that's what I prefer. But I am planning on making it long sleeved. So, oh, I didn't mention about the yarn. It is my own hand-dyed yarn. It's fingering weight base, 100% non-superwash fine merino wool. So I think that's all of my works in progress. There's a lot, isn't there? I did get one new thing in the mail that I'm so excited to share with you all. I love the looks of hand spun yarn, but I am not a spinner. I would love to learn someday, but I just never have had the opportunity. I would be interested in trying out a spinning wheel sometime, but it's kind of hard just to try out a spinning wheel, you know? I don't know anybody that spins, so anyway. I got myself some hand spun yarn and I love it so much. This gorgeous yarn is from Slothy Creations. She has an Etsy shop where she sells a lot of fiber to spin, but then she also has a few beautiful hanks of yarn that she has spun herself and is willing to part with, which is incredible. Okay, so this first one is such beautiful purples and blues and pinks. Isn't that amazing? This is a DK weight. The fiber is Rambouillet. The colorway is called Love Letters. It's 100 grams and 167 yards. And the second skein, or hank, is called Vibes. It's so gorgeous. I love these colors so much. This is Superwash Merino. It is also DK weight, 105 grams and 175 yards. Now I haven't decided what I'm going to use these for yet. I may use them together. I'm not sure if they work really well because this is really warm and this is more cool tones, but they might make a cool color work project. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. I thought of maybe a color work cowl, or I also might just use them in a color work yoke, maybe just one of the colors for the color work yoke of a sweater. I don't know, we'll see, but I just decided to treat myself to some hand spun yarn because I just love it so much. And it was really, really reasonably priced, so I couldn't pass it up. I love them so much. Definitely go check out her shop if you're interested in some hand spun yarn, or if you're a spinner and you're interested in some fiber. She has some gorgeous, gorgeous colorways for fiber as well. So I highly recommend her shop. Super, super fast shipping. I got this in 2 days after ordering it, I think. It was incredibly fast. I think that's all I have to share with you. We've been doing really well. We have recently had our county fair, which I was shocked that we even were able to have it. I know that many county fairs throughout the country have been canceled, but I'm so thankful that we were able to have it. It was a lot different than normal. There were a lot of restrictions, but I was able to enter quite a few of my handmade items into the domestic arts craft section of the fair, which is so much fun. I love being able to do that. I didn't do it at all last year, but I've normally done it throughout the years, entered a few of my handmade items, and that's always so much fun to be able to share what I've made with a community, in a community event. That's really fun to be able to do. And anyway, we were able to go to quite a few of the events. We went and saw the cattle show and the pig show. There was a cat show and a dog show. My boys and my husband went to a tractor pull. My daughter and I stayed home though, because we don't enjoy that. Anyway, we really enjoyed the fair this year. At the fair, they had free face painting, and my kids then asked if I would get them a face painting kit. So I did, and they've been playing with that. It just came last night, and they've been playing with that today, and it's been a lot of fun. They've been doing a super great job. They just have been painting their own faces. I haven't done any of it, but they've done so well. The kit that I got came with like a little booklet that gives you steps on how to make different animal faces. There was a tiger, a dog, a butterfly, a fox. So anyway, they've been having a lot of fun with the face painting. It's been going well. Butterfly update, we raise monarch butterflies, and we have had 15 butterflies hatch so far. We only have one chrysalis left in our net, which will probably hatch tomorrow, I would guess. So that will be our 16th if all goes well. And yeah, it's been a really fun experience. This is the second time that we have raised monarchs, and it is so much fun to be able to watch that process. So that's been super fun. We also had a special treat. We have a rafter of turkeys that lives in our yard. They roost in our trees to the north, and there's right now, the numbers vary. We kind of keep track of the numbers. Right now we have about max at about 13 right now, but we have had as many as 30 in one rafter. A group of turkeys is called a rafter, if you don't know that. And anyway, once in a great while, we'll see a mom with a few younger turkeys, but they're never very little that we've ever seen. They're always they're practically full grown, but you can kind of tell that they're a little bit smaller. They're not quite as mature as the mom. But last week, I'll put a video at the end of this so that you can see it. Last week, we saw a mother turkey come out of the bean field right next to us with 4 tiny little chicks. I guess I'll have to look that up to see what you call a baby turkey, but they're so tiny. They were just like this big. Oh my goodness, we've never seen them that small before. That was such a special treat. We only saw them that one day. We haven't seen them since, but I don't know how they survive because they can't roost in the trees. So how they don't get eaten by all of the many, many, many raccoons that we have around us, and foxes and coyotes, is a mystery to me. But anyway, they seem to be doing well. They were so adorable. We had to look at them from afar, of course, because they are wild turkeys. They are not tame at all. We can get they're probably a little bit more used to us than a regular wild turkey because they just are always in our yard, wandering around, eating, pecking at the ground. And like I said, they roost in our trees. So they're probably a little bit used to us, but we can never get close to them, which is a good thing. I'm glad of that. I don't want them to be tame. I want them to stay wild. But anyway, we couldn't get close to the mom, of course, but we could watch we were inside the house and we could see her out the window. So anyway, that was super exciting. I think that's it. I can't think of anything else to share with you all. I hope you all have been doing really well. I thank you so much for joining me today. If you did enjoy this podcast, I would really appreciate you giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to this channel if you haven't yet. I hope you all have a great couple of weeks ahead. Thanks again for watching. Bye.